Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Hello, this is Thomas Hubert, news correspondent with the Irish Farmers Journal. Welcome to this week's podcast. On Monday, the Minister for Agriculture, Michael Creed, launched the new sheep welfare scheme, which will deliver a payment of €10 per ewe in the new year. Irish Farmers Journal livestock specialist Darren Carty was at Kenmare Mart for the launch, and he spoke to the Minister, the Mart manager and local sheep farmers to get their views on the new scheme.
I'm here joined by Minister Michael Creed. Minister, you're just after launching the new animal welfare sheep scheme. You mentioned in your speech that this is something that you were hoping would help support sheep farmers maybe into the future, and maybe rubber fast Ireland's sheep industry and maybe see a bit of growth in it.
It's long overdue recognition to the sector. It is a very valuable sector. As I said, it's worth over 320 million. It's 230 million of that are in export earnings, and that's significant, and we see 2017 as an opportunity to grow that industry further. And I think in terms of the animal welfare side of the scheme, it'll complement the sustainability approach that we have, and I think it'll give us an edge in the marketplace, being able to say that we have both product that's sustainably produced but produced also to the highest animal welfare standards. And in the marketplace, anything that gives you a difference, a selling point, is important, and I think that's what we have here now.
You're also, I suppose, maybe focused on getting more young people in, and that's something you've taken provision of in the scheme. Is that a sort of element that you're going to focus on in the next few years, trying to get more young people into agriculture?
We have initiatives, not least the new Farm Partnership Initiative, but we have a problem with the age profile generally in farming, and I think that's important to recognise. And this scheme, insofar as it's open to new entrants, is an important step in that regard.
So now I'm joined by John Linsky, IFA Sheep Committee Chairman. John, I suppose we've just heard the Minister talk there. A good initiative for sheep farmers?
Yes, we'd welcome this because, as you're aware, sheep farmers' incomes are low in general, and any bit of support that comes, we'd welcome that. And the way it's structured as well, it's very important. Farmers will not incur any huge costs to apply and get this scheme.
And I suppose that's an area that you were very cognizant of when you were sort of trying to push it, is that it had to be simple, I suppose, maybe to operate, but also that it wasn't going to cause a huge amount of additional cost, paperwork burden on farmers.
Well, when our work with the department and with the Minister, we stressed the need to have this simple scheme that wouldn't be costing farmers a huge amount, and that they wouldn't be burdened down with any extra work, and that's the way it has worked out.
Probably never more important in the year like we've had that a lot of people probably forget, or just say lamb prices haven't been too bad for the main season, but we did have a very high cost spring.
Yes, and this payment of €10 per ewe to sheep farmers is vital from the point of view of its support, and as well as that, it shows that the government are committed to the sheep sector.
And probably none more important than down here in the hill area. We've seen here today some of the light lambs, and I suppose €10 is a vital payment to keep that going.
Well, it is, because we need to hold the present numbers of sheep both on the hills and in the lowland to have a vibrant sheep industry going forward.
Say, next step, John, I know you've been integral in securing the €10, pushing on maybe to try and gain a bit more ground for sheep farmers, maybe A&C, and making sure that there is a support payment there.
Well, sheep farmers in general are heavily dependent on all the different types of supports, and there are a number of areas, as you have mentioned, A&Cs, and even the TAMs as well too, for sheep fencing. All those things are vital for the sheep sector, and I know the sheep farmers welcome any support that they can get to ensure that it keeps sheep farmers in business.
I'm joined here with Dan McCarthy, Mart Manager from Kenmare Mart. Dan, a very exciting day for the Mart.
A great day for the Mart, a great day. I suppose it brought us into the history books, and for the first time ever we had a senior Minister for Agriculture, and he was like Santa Claus. He brought something to the sheep farmers that I've been waiting for the last about 15 years.
probably a vital year in this. We've been talking a good few times on the phone during the year on prices, and at times, say, hill lambs have been a difficult trade at times this year.
They have been tough, and I suppose this is an incentive for fellas to stay at them, because if we hadn't an incentive, I could see the number of sheep farmers dwindling every year and the numbers going down. But I suppose this will help, and hopefully it will keep the sheep farming community going.
There's a lot of life, and we've seen by, I suppose, the crowd here today, but it's also, I suppose, maybe shown how important sheep farming is to an area like Kenmare in the milestone that you hit last week. Maybe tell us a bit about that.
Well, I suppose for the second year in a row we hit selling 50,000 sheep, and I thought it's a great honour. I suppose we're going over 51,000 after today now. Like, it is a great honour and a great thing to see that many sheep have left this part of the country, and we know ourselves that if we don't get them produced, we can't finish them here, because the land and the mountains is not capable of doing it, so they have to be sent up the country for finishing, and we're lucky enough that we have enough of them in and coming down from up the country to buy them.
And that's something you've really focused on, and it seems to be going well, is that even putting together, say, batches of lambs, what other buyers want. It's something that, I suppose, maybe longer term, that there is money to be made in the hill lamb. It's some farmers around here find it difficult to finish, but if they have a right product, that there is buyers there for them.
Yes, if we can produce the right type of a lamb and the right quality lamb, get the lamb eating, and I believe myself, if the lamb is tailed, especially the Suffolk, tailed and castrated, it makes a big difference to the people that are buying them up the country, where they be putting 2,000 lambs together. They don't want rams and ewes mixing, because we know what happens. So if we do it right, there's still a market there, and hopefully it will live on for the future.
Dan, it would be bad us if we didn't give you a plug. First day back in 2017?
We'll be back to 12th of January. We'll be hitting for maybe another 50,000 next year. God will spare us. We'll keep at it.
I'm in Kenmare Mart, and I'm joined by Patrick Doyle, Blackwater, and he also looks after the pounds, pennies and shillings here in Kenmare Mart, his treasurer. And I'm also joined by John Harrington, and I better make sure I get this right, John, Bears, Aries, Beara, County Cork. Patrick, I suppose after hearing a good announcement there was a great whole bit of buzz around Kenmare Mart today, and really I suppose sheep is one of the things that's keeping this area going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very mountainous area around here, from here back into the Beara Peninsula, down South Kerry, over into the Cork area there, Bellavourne, plenty of mountains, so it's those mountainy sheep, and we don't get a great return when we're selling them. We do the best we can, but these light lambs, they don't make huge money. You need them, and they keep the hills right. There's a lot of talk about environmental schemes now, but if you don't have sheep on hills, they're going to go totally wild, and I think the farmers need something just to keep them up there, because the costs have gone way up and the price of lamb hasn't gone accordingly, unfortunately. So it's great to have the announcement today. Now it's a start. Anyone is heading us in the right direction. We hope he'll be adding on to the next few years. Yeah.
I suppose, John, that's a point that you made, is, say, 10 years. It's a significant, say, sum of money when you take some of what the light lambs have been sold here today, and it's a good start.
It is a good start, yeah. It's like building bricks. We have something to work off of now. You know, anything we get afterwards is a bonus, but €10 is nothing to be laughed at.
Definitely, I suppose, in a hard year that you could really split the country in two this year, and I know, say, I'm from up Galway, and really I suppose all down along the west coast it has been a fairly difficult year on sheep.
It is, and especially the type of sheep that we have, the Scotch sheep and the mountainy sheep, we have to have them, we're confined to them, and crossbreds are making more money, but we have to have Scotches, a certain amount of them, and we're just not getting the money for them, but we still have to have them. We have to keep going, so we can't do anything about that, it's the type of ground we have.
Yeah, and I suppose that's another area where you'd like to see, in that, say, the tenure is one thing, but I suppose hill sheep farmers have to be treated like for like in regards to schemes like the GLAS scheme, or getting back the area natural conservation to the big payment. They have a huge bearing on the profitability of hill enterprises.
They have, because out of here, big farmers, they can have big quantities and good land, and they can make more money. We can only make a certain amount. It's only all based on what we can get in the brown envelope. €10, €5, anything we get, it's all a help.
And I suppose it's another thing that it's vital, and maybe Patrick, go to you, in that you're seeing the sort of the clientele that's coming in here around buying sheep, and unfortunately the age profile is getting worrying, and there was a lot of young people in today, and there was a great hour bit of festive cheer, but it's things like this that are going to be vital to get young people into agriculture.
Absolutely, because most of the farmers here now, they need some other income, whether it's a part-time job or these environmental schemes are a big help as well. Absolutely, they're not going to survive on the price of a lamb at the moment. That's the bottom line, and they need support in that line then. Yeah. As a mart as well, I suppose we have to try and get the best prices we can for the farmers who are coming here, and we hope the markets will improve. I suppose that there was plenty of trade for light lambs years ago going down to Spain and Portugal, but that seems to have evaporated. So I think we'll have to look into the Minister to see if he can get a few more markets now for those type of lamb.
Thanks very much, lads, and happy Christmas, Steve.
Yeah, thank you very much.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
Meanwhile, the TB Strategic Partnership Group was presenting its action plan to eradicate the disease in Northern Ireland. Our correspondent Peter McCann spoke with John Thompson, one of the members of the group, and he first asked him how the strategy proposes to deal with badgers in areas affected by TB outbreaks.
Where a source of disease can't be identified, whether it was brought into an area and it's widespread, and quite a number of farms down in the area. Really, any other source has to be ruled out other than wildlife, and to get on top of the disease, we just have to tackle wildlife. And what we're proposing is a cull within a controlled zone, and a vaccination and a wider ring outside that zone. And certainly, we would recommend, and that would be continuing for up to 4 years in that area, along with increased testing. We would hope to remove the disease from that particular area, but it just doesn't make sense to keep testing away at cattle continually where the disease is found, and there are no obvious reasons of source other than we know it's in wildlife. It's been proven it's in wildlife by the road traffic accident test on dead badgers, so we really have to tackle the disease in wildlife. We want our aim is for a healthy cattle population, but also the benefit of a healthy wildlife population as well.
The cap and compensation for farmers for reactor animals, how is that going to work, or how have you recommended that?
Well, certainly, we have recommended a cap. I think most farmers will not be concerned about it. It's set at such a level for the commercial farm that it will impact on very few. However, the pedigree farmers, it will have a greater impact. We have recommending a 20% above our commercial value for individual animals and the cap on animals. At this stage, we're not any further recommendation on compensation levels in the foreseeable future, but it will have an impact. Certainly, we have to actually hope that either through breed societies or insurance, etc., that farmers will be able to avail to a level for those individual animals that are much valuable than their level of cap, that they can actually avail of some sort of a degree of cover for those. But again, it is actually within our recommendations. There were some, if you look at what happens in New Zealand, they have one level, they give no advantage to individual pedigree animals. This is actually probably a level that some may think is too low, but certainly it's what we're recommending.
Just finally, John, on testing, you've recommended still using the skin test when they did use a severe interpretation of a skin test result, but also a more wider use of the gamma test. On what scale and on what situation are you recommending use of the gamma test?
The gamma test at present, I think, is used in about 16 to 18,000 animals per year. We're recommending that goes up initially to about 24,000. At the moment, it's used in small and medium-sized herds only, and non-pedigree herds. We are recommending that it's much wider used and targeted in animal and basically a part of a herd where disease seems to be widespread, to try and get to the bottom of that disease. And really remove animals at an early stage that's subsequently going to go down anyway. And the other element is that it will be compulsory that those animals that are positive for that blood test will be removed.
John, so at this stage, you made the recommendations to the Minister. Have you any feel for the uptake or appetite among the department for it?
It's handed to the Minister. She will actually, it's her view whether she puts out to consultation or not. Only my initial feeling it will go out to consultation, but it's, as far as the department is concerned, we've had discussions with the chief vet and senior veterinary people, and I think they would be in broad agreement with actually what we're proposing as a way of trying to get the bottom on eradicating this disease.
John, thanks very much for your time.
Meanwhile, the Irish Farmers Journal's Northern Ireland editor David Wright was getting reactions to the TB plan. He first asked Tim Morrow, a dairy farmer from Dundonald in County Down, if he saw any positive in the actions proposed.
I do, actually. I think unlike some of the people who were speaking at the meeting, I can understand people's frustration. I'm back with TB again. We got over 90 animals taken away 3 years ago, so it's a very, very frustrating and very intensive situation for people, so I understand their frustration. However, this report is pointing a way forward, and people have to be a little bit patient for a little while longer. And what we need to be saying very clearly to the Minister is that you've now got the science, you've now got the evidence base, there's been 2 years of work went into this, you now have to implement this.
In your own area, did you get a feeling for what the problem was?
Everyone automatically assumes it's badgers, and I think that's the wrong way to do it. I think the most prevalent way that TB is spread is from cow to cow, and everyone knows that. But once you get one animal in, the problem is, where does it come from initially? And ours mainly broke out when we had the very bad outbreak. It started in our young stock. So it was obviously in one of our outer fields, because the closer fields are used to the dairy stock. So our thought is, we have 4 sets on the farm, and we think most of those are clear actually, because otherwise we'd be going down all the time. So our rogue badger has got in it somewhere, infected one of the animals, and then probably it is just spread within the herd, as that's what it does. To automatically assume that every badger has got it is wrong. So I'm not one of those people who says kill every badger. However, if you're in an area of high incidence like Downpatrick or Atherley or some of these places which is just riven with TB, there has to be a policy go in that not just a single badger is taken out if they find a badger with TB, that they go back to that set and they remove that set of badgers. And not just that, if they find there's the whole pile of sets, then that whole area needs to be taken away. They need to do what they're suggesting in terms of vaccination in the surrounding area, just so as it doesn't meander its way back in, because that's what has happened in previous cases.
And what do you think that farmers could do in terms of going forward with working with vets, working with the Department of Agriculture? There's talked a bit out there about having local groups and that. Do you see something in that?
Yeah, I do think sometimes farmers are very sceptical, and sometimes we're a very selfish group of people because it's us that's being affected. But we do have to develop a trust with DAERA, with the veterinary officials, that we can all work in partnership, because I honestly do believe that everyone wants an end to this problem. I don't believe it's just farmers. I do believe the veterinary division and the vets that are testing are under serious pressure as well. So I think we need to they need to get a strong strategy, especially in terms of how they're going to do the badger cull. To me, that's the key to the whole thing. If they're just going to take an individual badger here or there, it ain't going to work, and I think all farmers would say that would be mad. So we need to actually develop a strong strategy with the veterinary division, who'll be in charge of that, I assume.
Okay, thanks, Tim. With me, Ian Stewart. Ian's one of the directors in Parkland's veterinary group in Dungannon. Ian, obviously you've been around a lot of farms over the years, doing a lot of testing, etc. You've seen a lot of frustrations. Things need to change going forward.
Yeah, I agree. Our vets, along with the farms that we go to, have done a lot of hard work over the years to try and control TB. Unfortunately, all that has done is control it. It hasn't eradicated the disease. And I think the only way forward is we have to take a new look at the problem and try and work together better. More cooperation, more communication between ourselves and the department and the vets, feeding back information and trying to look into why each individual herd has been affected with TB, and try and come up with solutions for each farm, and also maybe across the board in areas and high incidence areas, just to try and improve things.
And you obviously saw a lot of, over the years you've seen a lot of different maybe reasons why farmers have had TB. Can you rank them? Can you rate them? Do you is it all about badgers, or is there other issues going on there?
Yeah, I mean, we've always believed that there has to be a wildlife reservoir, that it plays a big factor, and we have to sympathise with farms that lose cows year after year, cattle year after year with TB, when we know that there's nothing done to address the wildlife reservoir. Also acknowledge that the movement of cattle sometimes, and sort of the whole Conacher system in Ireland, could contribute a little bit to the mixing and contact of animals as well. TB is a very complicated disease, and there's no real simple answer to controlling it. It's sort of a multifactorial, and we need this new approach, and I hope it works, and I hope it's well resourced by the local government here to help the department put in place a lot of the measures that have been recommended.
I have with me now Victor Chestnut. Victor is the Deputy President of the Ulster Farmers Union. Victor, maybe just your initial reaction to the launch of the TB strategic report.
This has been long awaited for. I'm not going to make comment on the report as such. We in the union have a committee structure. All the livestock committees and our animal health committee will look at this report in detail. I know, in an initial glance down the back page especially, there's things there that the industry will not be able to accept in my view, but we will have to wait to see what our wider industry says. We will come forward with a position on this in due time, but we are glad to see that for the first time wildlife, which we as farmers all knew needed to be tackled, this report has come out along with that. Along with the governance issue that was talked about earlier on in the presentation today, is key. I think we need to replace the governance we have with these other governance groups, and more local and farmer involvement in that can only be good for the eradication of this disease.
Yeah, but obviously you're saying you've got some concerns, but you see positives. I suppose the main positive is that at least we cannot continue doing what we've been doing to this point.
I've always said that one of my commitments at the start was, if I stick the pace, this is a 6-year term, that I would like to see the incidence well reduced within 6 years. One of the first things in the report, when I see in one of the first paragraphs a 30 to 40 year time scale, would turn most farmers out there off. We don't believe the issue is as complex as this. Yes, maybe to get rid of the last bit of TB, yes, but we think that far sooner we could have a meaningful reduction within this disease, which is wreaking havoc on many farms.
Okay, thanks, Victor.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
We're going to take a look at the year that was 2016 with three of our livestock specialists today, with Kieran Linehan for beef, Aidan Brennan for dairy, and Darren Carty for sheep. I'm going to start with you, Aidan. We're coming to the end of the year. There was a bit of a roller coaster for dairy farmers. What do you see that was really striking this year, and what will stay?
Yeah, Thomas, I suppose the most dairy farmers are looking for is it for 2016 to end. Like it was a tough year in terms of milk prices, albeit helped a lot by the weather. It was generally good for most of the dairy producing regions, albeit the west and the northeast and the northwest suffered very badly during the summer. But for the most of the country where most of the milk is produced, it was a pretty good year weather-wise, and that really buffered the fact that the milk prices were quite low, because farmers could produce milk at a lower cost, and they were able to reduce their costs, and it got them through the year, which is the main thing.
Okay, Kieran, maybe from the main beef heartland, a different perspective.
Yeah, I resonate Aidan's thing probably more severely from the beef end. It's been a difficult year, but the problem for us is it doesn't look like letting up. So we have a kind of a model where if we plug costs into one of our kind of middle of the road better farmers from Tipperary, his net profit is going to be down by about 12.6% on last year. So beef prices have fallen. He's getting a bit of a relief from decrease in feed and fertiliser prices as well. But that's a big hit to take on an already kind of low margin enterprise. So I think 2016 has been tough, and it's 2017 and beyond is going to be about trimming your costs. So just doing a bit of analysis on that guy, if he reduces his vet bill by 10% per cow and gets an extra 3% DMD in the silage, he can kind of soften that blow down to 10%. But as I said, that's just kind of back of an envelope stuff. It's going to be
about. Why didn't they do that this year, Kieran? Like, I mean, are we waiting for 2017 for the beef farmer to reduce his costs?
Well, look, he's been actively, that guy, this is a theoretical guy. We pulled in a few, but this our Better Farm programme, so we have a couple of farmers in every county. We're starting a new phase now at the end of January, but it's just, I suppose, that's just to illustrate that guys need to look at their own efficiencies and see where they can make up these losses. You know, it's not all about, like, beef price is obviously huge, but there's lots of things we can control inside our own gate too.
And the environment they're operating in, as you said, the beef price is going down. That's a combination of various factors, live exports, more cattle coming on stream. What would you see happening in the last few months that will carry us into 2017?
I suppose, Thomas, the beef kill is it's up. We're about 80,000 ahead of last year at this point. So about 1.61 million as of this week. It's high kill, and what's not helping us obviously is the sterling. So half our beef's going to the UK. They're now paying more for it. Our live exports are back 30,000, and again, normally we'd go, or in 2015 it was about 40,000 going to Northern Ireland. Again, sterling is having problems there. That's down to about 20,000. So there's, in a nutshell, there's more animals in the country, and obviously with the quotas going the last few years, there's more dairy bred animals coming through as well. Like they're all feeding in, the surplus are all feeding into our beef supply. So look, it's going to be a difficult year ahead.
Yeah, and we can turn to Aidan on that as well. Maybe what's happening with calves, the trend of the past year. Where are we heading with all our dairy calves?
Yeah, sure. We have more dairy cows, so there's going to be more dairy calves. Look, a good share of them this year will be actually beef bred, because dairy farmers, the evidence is that they use more beef AI this breeding season because they want to reduce the number of heifer calves that they're getting for dairy sires. But
still hitting the dedicated beef guys very hard.
Well, I mean, like, are beef cross animals from the dairy herd better than, you know, the pure Frisian? Like, and I mean, surely they are.
Of course they are. Yeah. They actually bring bonuses in that you have a uniformity going to a processor, and you're obviously not feeding a suckler cow. You know, she's costing 600, 700 euros a year to feed, but at the end of the day, naturally produced suckler beef is we've over 1 million suckler cows in Ireland, and they're under big pressure with this.
Yeah, but it's not in the dairy farmers' mindset or interest to produce beef calves for a failing suckler or failing beef business. Like, I mean, in terms of, it was a rational decision for dairy farmers that they didn't need as many they didn't feel they needed as many heifers coming forward, so they're going to use more beef and get higher value for those calves and benefit the beef industry at the same time. But it has to be win-win. Like, and I think going forward, there's going to be more collaboration between dairy and beef farmers in terms of selecting bulls for breeding and for the suckler herd and for beef finishing animals as well. Like, so.
Yeah, well, in terms of the beef heifers that you produce, you know, we would be kind of telling guys to take on a couple of these, incorporate them into your cow herd. Replacements off these are going to have milk. They're going to be great beef animals if they're crossed with a beef cow. And also, you know, guys, suckler guys that maybe are at their cow limit, we'd be encouraging them to take on, you know, start off small, a batch of these calves, and when their year is in a quiet period, you know, you can add output to your farm by taking on a batch of these calves and rearing them. But we would be saying to kind of dip the toe and see how you go, because rearing calves is not for the faint-hearted. But yeah, look, and we have to be working together, and there needs to be synergies between the two, but at the moment they're just not there.
It looks like one of the lessons from this year is maybe, the beef and dairy sectors will need to coordinate a bit and see what's coming down the line in terms of animals, if they're both going to get a decent price for the male offspring. And
generally speaking, the male, the bull calf sales, or what it's called cows, they make up a very small proportion of dairy farmers' overall income. And there's always an argument that the Jersey breed is going to diminish that, but it's a really small proportion of the farmer's income. You know, it's about 5% or thereabouts. So, I mean, from the dairy farmer's perspective, his breeding policy should always be geared towards breeding high fertility cows and cows that are going to produce high fat and protein, because that's what we're paid on. So that has a greater bearing than breeding for bull beef, or whatever.
You both touched on the weather at the start, and we can maybe look at how that translated into grass and feed. Where are we now at the end of the year in terms of what farmers need to last the winter, and how spring is going to look like based on where we are now in the fields?
Yeah, well, I suppose in the next couple of weeks, Thomas, we'll be running a kind of a focus magazine about kind of taking stock, about seeing where you are. So at the moment, that'll be working out or calculating how much silage we have left in the yard and how much we have, and our feed demand for the rest of the spring. We have to plan for difficult springs. We've got probably 2 in the last 5 years, very difficult springs, i.e. cattle have been in for longer than they would traditionally be in. So we'll be running that next week. In terms of grass, there's not much we can do at the moment for grass. Maybe start walking the farm as February creeps in, but at the moment the vast majority of cattle are indoors, and it's I suppose if guys haven't got their silage tested yet, it's a big bear. And as I said, one of the ways our theoretical farmer could save money and improve his profits would be to increase his silage quality. So if guys are just feeding a rough amount of meal to kind of store cattle, like if that guy, he's feeding about 45 weanlings, we have it, if he could feed I think 300 grams less a day, he's going to reduce his hit big time. So it's just things like that. Soil sampling, Aidan?
Yeah, look, it's now it's time to do it. Like, definitely there's co-ops are doing special deals there on it, and that's about growing more grass for the next 5 or 10 years, like by having your soils in the right order. But I suppose in terms of 2016's grass year, like very regional, Thomas. I mean, I was on with farmers in Wexford yesterday growing 17 tons. Our Dairylink farmers up in the north, up in Tyrone, they're looking to grow 9 tons this year, like, because just constant rain, no photosynthesis, very little growth, very little ability to get many grazings in. Like, they're looking to get, in some paddocks maybe only grazing twice, whereas we're talking about 10 grazings is our target. Like, so huge variation. It was a pretty good year for grass for the most part. Probably average, I suppose, over as 2015 versus 2016, not much of a difference. It was very slow start, so March and April very wet, very cold, very little grass growth. Then it exploded in May.
It doubled in a week in May.
Yeah, and that kept going then for a long period, about 6 weeks. Couldn't believe it. And then the back end then came very good as well. So November was a great month, and farmers milked on where grass and soil conditions allowed.
Okay, so let's leave cattle aside for a moment and turn to sheep. Darren, how was the year for sheep farmers as far as you've seen it develop?
I suppose it was a very, very mixed year, and by that what I mean is that, say, farmers starting the year, they had a good scanning rate. We've seen that for the last 2 or 3 years now there's been favourable conditions of breeding, and that has really, I suppose, maybe transferred into higher litter sizes. The unfortunate thing, and I suppose many of our other speakers will talk about it, is that it was a difficult spring. First of all, for a lot of people in the west, there was the huge flooding, there was increased feed costs, and then there was also the knock-on effects of, while overall the year could be divided in two in terms of grass growth, there was a real pinch point in the end of April, start of May. And one of the things that's really, really pertinent in sheep enterprises is that you can't really afford to put a lot of cost in regards feeding. So farmers got caught during that period. Yours had young lambs, there wasn't a lot of grass, and they had no option but to bring in concentrates. And once you start bringing in concentrates, it starts running into costs. That said, I suppose the farmers that had, say, lambs early on in the year, they didn't do too bad. The markets, I suppose, could also be divided in that started off maybe sluggish in that there was a high carryover of hoggets, which we're likely to see again this year. Then there was, I suppose, an absence of maybe lambs as we went into the main season, into May and June. Because of that, say, tough weather, lambs got stunted, didn't thrive, and that has been a feature right throughout the year. So what we've seen is that the kill was, I suppose, maybe pushed forward 2 weeks right along, and right up to the middle of the year we were running well behind 2015 levels. It created more demand in the market and just kept prices maybe 10-15 cent ahead. Unlike the cattle situation, the Brexit issues and the whole thing in the downturn, sheep largely for a long time really wasn't hugely impacted on that because of the tight supplies. There was also tight supplies in the UK, so there wasn't a huge amount of crossover. Where it did create a pinch point was when big numbers of lambs started to come out from the UK in September, October, November, and also then we had a few announcements on Brexit. We had the fluctuation in sterling exchange rates, and that did upset the market for a while, and we're still living with that to this week, in that for the last 8 to 9 weeks prices are probably running somewhere 20 to 30 cent behind last year, coming on the back of that maybe upsetting of the market, but also more lambs in the system. And even if we look at the last 4 to 6 weeks in particular, the lamb kill has been running 3,000-4,000 ahead of the same week on week, ahead of the same weeks last year. So that will leave us finishing the year somewhat around 50,000 head of sheep killed more. But as I said, that's one figure. The devil is hidden in the detail, in that a lot of that is coming from a high carryover of hoggets, and that's something that you would be maybe, I suppose, just a bit cautious of. Is that I think that we will have a high kill leading into January, February next year. Now, of course, this week in the paper there is, I suppose, a glimmer of light at the end of it.
The new scheme that's coming. Yeah,
it's a glimmer of light for after a tough year, and like, to look back to spring, and I suppose if you looked at the sheep sector, people would say that the year wasn't too bad, but the cost will be a dent in the side. The 10-year payment, which will come, of course, in 2017, the minister quite rightly put it as that it wasn't going to be a game changer. It was a recognition that the sheep sector has maybe been left behind or not at the same level of funding in recent years, and it's now, I suppose, a recognition of this. Incomes have been tough, and that this is a boost. It won't transform numbers as based on historic figures, but at least it is a payment that's there to support the industry going forward and hopefully underpin the sheep flock. The big unknown going into next year is what Brexit is going to deliver, and we could talk here for the next hour, and someone else could come in and talk.
Nobody knows.
And no one knows.
Okay.
So,
now, one thing you mentioned there, and we've just heard Kieran talk about it from the beef side of things, is these feed bills that went up and need to be really brought under control after very mixed weather at best, especially in the dry stock heartland in the west. What's the situation on farms now with feed and grass going into the spring soon enough?
Yeah, the last, I suppose, if you were standing in September, the 1st of September, and looking at grass supplies for your breeding ewes, or looking at the number of lambs you had left to finish, you would have said it was going to be an absolute disaster of a year. And we did get that reprieve in October, carrying into November. That really was a lifeline, and that's the best way of putting it. It has led to a situation that farmers have housed possibly 2 weeks earlier than what they would have, or started feeding 2 weeks earlier, as opposed to maybe having to feed 4 to 5 weeks earlier. So it's not, say, having a huge impact, but it is starting to maybe let costs creep into the situation again. But by and large, the back end hasn't been too bad. We don't know what it's going to be like for spring. There is, I suppose, maybe a bit of appetite there at the moment in regards to store lamb trade and the finished lamb trade. How that will materialise will all depend on markets in the start of the year. But the other, I suppose, maybe side of it is no one knows for sure yet what type of spring we're going to get. And in sheep enterprises, the fellas that are housing sheep, it's generally not maybe caught as bad as the cattle side, and that sheep can be turned outdoors because they're lighter on the land. And what you're looking at is the crunch month for sheep in regards fodder is March and April, and that's grass more so than silage or hay. So reserves of silage or hay should be pretty good in the sheep side, unless, say, in some mixed farms where there might be a bit of tightness, but generally won't be too awfully bad.
Okay, Darren, thank you very much, and that's something to look forward to, maybe a nicer spring coming year than this past year.
That's what we'd hope for anyway.
All right, thanks, Darren.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.
The cover story in this week's Irish Country Living is about Glencairn Abbey in County Waterford, where the 28 nuns are spending their first Christmas in a convent entirely renovated for the first time in 90 years. There is a constant stream of young women joining them in the religious life, and the community is very much looking to the future. Let's listen to them sing Silent Night to wish you a very happy Christmas from all of us at the Irish Farmers Journal.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie, on the Irish Farmers Journal app and on iTunes every Thursday. Brought to you by Ornua, the home of Irish dairy.